Well, as a special guest intro, I'm going to introduce Aidan Ridyard, who's sitting with us in St Mary's Church in Tanworth-in-Arden with Pat, with Phil, and welcome to the Communion Podcast. Aidan, give us a welcome.
Thank you, Alex. Welcome to your podcast and welcome to Tanworth-in-Arden. It is Midsummer's Day. We are in the Forest of Arden, and as in a certain play by a certain person who has associations with Warwickshire, there could be no more auspicious moment than to sit down and discuss great works of art.
So we're here with Phil and Pat in the beautiful St Mary's in Tanworth-in-Arden, and we're just recounting the journey, the pilgrimage we've all been on over the not too recent times. I guess a good place to start is, what would you consider to be the genesis of the project at the very beginning? Why did you begin?
Well, I've been on the PCC on and off for about 20 years, and at many meetings there was discussion about what are we going to do about the unlevel floors and the difficulty for people with mobility difficulties getting into our church. We looked at scheme after scheme and nothing seemed to be suitable. We also didn't have any money, but what made the difference was the Disability Act, I think it was in 2012, made it important for all public buildings to have level access. Before that, we had 3 quite steep steps down into our church, which was dark, and we had a number of accidents. We then had different levels at the back of our church on the west end, which were trip hazards. The lighting was very poor because the floor was very dark, Victorian tiles. So it was a problem for a lot of reasons. So that was, I felt that was the first time we really felt we had to move ahead. And then God was really working with us because sadly the captain of our bell ringers died after a very long life and a long service to our church. He was a bachelor farmer. He left us his farm. And before that, we had no money, did we, Phil?
No. And sort of added to that as well, the back of the church itself was a bit of a mess. We'd got curtains that were the changing space for the choir. They went behind the curtains. There were plenty of trip hazards behind those. And we'd been told on visits by the Archdeacon to try and tidy this place up, and our last vicar was told that when he arrived, Paul, please get this church tidied up. And as Pat has said, trying to get level access was a nightmare. We got steps into and out of the church, both on the north and south side. We looked at removing the steps, but we couldn't get a shallow enough ramp to meet the building regulation requirements. We hadn't got the room to do that. And the old font was on 2 tiers of brickwork. And as Pat has said, that made it dangerous. If you wanted to do children's activities at the back of the church, we were cringed, didn't we, every Sunday? We put cushions down to try and cover the bumpy parts, but the cushions got moved. So there were lots of good reasons for wanting to change the church at the back and tidy it up into a more usable space.
I certainly remember that the first time I visited, you came into the church and then you looked east and you got a fantastic chancel, beautiful east end window, and everything's, really, it's a really beautiful church. And I remember walking down the aisle and then turning to come back, and it was like, it's a completely different building, and it was a little bit of a maybe jumble sale at the West End, wasn't it?
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And we were aware that our congregation and the wider parish would want us to hold on to the traditional reverent part of our church, not to lose what we can see from here, which is the whole of the east and central part of the church is still very traditional. And this contemporary feel that the transformation of the West End complements that very well without spoiling it. And we were very careful about our consultation. We listened very carefully to what the public said. And if you remember, we were going to change the Lady Chapel down there, and they really didn't want us to do that. So making another way of doing things so that we didn't spoil that made a great difference to the outlook. And I think in the end, we took everybody with us, didn't we, Phil?
Yes.
I don't think there's anybody now that...
I think that took some time, and again, it's where community and architects were very helpful at the start and get a good set of drawings. We had to try and take the diocese with us as well, because they were encouraging churches not to spend money on building projects and building repair work unless it was absolutely necessary. But I think the PCC at the time, and I mean, this all started back in 2016, the conception was sort of born. But we also thought that if the church had any future, if we wanted to sort of future-proof it, to make it more fit for use in the 21st century, we needed to do something with the church. And we'd seen other churches where they'd done similar things, even on a real simple and small scale, trying to do something and free up the back of the church, the West End, to do something with their churches to make them more usable space. So that was sort of high on our agenda, and it did take a lot of getting used to taking people with us. And that's where community and architects did us a good set of drawings. We've been pinned up in church for several weeks. We had some consultation, and people let their feelings be known. As you said, originally we were looking at doing something which affected
the other way God worked with us was he brought us Aidan. I mean, Aidan had moved into the parish about a quarter of the way through, I think. He came out with us on the initial, but he just moved in here. And as you know, Aidan's the son of a vicar, so he understood, and he's an architect, and here he is, and he's just walked in the door.
Oh, brilliant.
And then because he knew how to talk to the diocese committee, it's been really, really helpful. So
you came.
Hello.
I knew the champagne would draw you in. So, Pat, you were thanking God for Aidan arriving, and almost as if on cue, he arrived for a second time. Yeah. It's almost like the second coming of Aidan.
I know, but I'm not surprised.
You were saying that Aidan is a bit of a gift from God.
Well, yes, because he took an interest in any difficulties that we might have in getting the plans through the diocese, because the diocese is a naturally very cautious creature, and so we knew that we might encounter problems. So that was really helpful. And then there were other things that Aidan explained that I hadn't thought of, was how useful it would be to engage local craftsmen or designers in the project, because that made it more local. And then another great gift was, Phil found the yew tree log. If you remember, just going back a bit, the vicar wanted to move the old font into the churchyard because he wanted people to be baptised in the Forest of Arden, which is where we are. The diocese couldn't cope with that, and nor could English Heritage, which was the other person who was at the meeting. So the vicar said, Paul, all right, we'll bring the forest into the church. So that's why we have a yew tree as a font in the church. And then we thought, well, we've got this log, how are we going to carve it? And we discovered that for 20 years there's been a wood carver on the farm estate near here that we didn't know about, did we, Phil? No. And he created the whole thing for us. So that was a delight, because he was so pleased we asked, wasn't he, Phil?
He was, yes.
And
he was really delighted.
He really engaged with the whole thing. So that was terrific. And then Aidan designed our glass door.
Manifestation.
We didn't know he had these
These skills.
skills. So there you are. So it was really nice that local people were, engaging in it. Yeah, so that was very special as well. And I think that all helped the community to see that this wasn't just a project that was being forced on us by somebody else. It was something that other people could engage in.
Brilliant, brilliant.
I would widen that out to the consultation process as well, in that I think we engaged with people at a level where they can say, I took part in an idea being shaped, and that idea I can recognise in the project. And that's always a winner, when somebody said, well, yeah, that was, I did that. And they might have been one of 5 who said that, but actually it's gets that buy-in really.
But if they are one of 5, it validates the idea.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I think, because of the extent of the consultation we did, that kind of gives you a groundswell of buy-in before you start.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was the sort of genesis of the project. In terms of practical steps, you said obviously it had been sort of mooted for about 20 years. What was the first kind of concrete steps that the PCC or a committee took in order to start the project and engage with moving forward? Can you remember what those were?
I think it was a big commitment from PCC to actually invest even in the design, because the design work itself was not going to be a cheap process. I think always at the back of the PCC's mind was the fact that if we do all this design work and we can't afford it, is that money wasted? And yeah, I think, and Aidan was a big player in this again, saying, well, no, at least if we've got a package, even if we put it on the shelf and we've got something that works, it is worth going forward with. And I think the other thing was that it's always easy when you design a project to want to go straight to the finishing post and say, this is what we want. And again, I think with Aidan's help and when Communion got involved, yourself, Alex, we walked through the process. We didn't try to get to Z without going all the way, why do you want that? Does that have to be there? Is that really practical? Is it needed? So the whole process was for, and in that sense, I think people warmed to it then, and again, the PCC, as with the general public in the consultation, the PCC felt they owned it because we were looking at different elements and discussing. The kitchen never ended up at Servery where it is now. It was never where it was first intended. It was the old kitchen with something of a revamp, but then we learned we could do bigger and grander things, and people bought into that.
I think also you went on visits, didn't you? Did you form a small group, a committee, or how was it? Who, obviously, lots of people were involved
we
in it,
did.
but,
The first visits were the vicar, Aidan, and myself. I think, Phil, you weren't at church.
No, we weren't.
Phil was working full time as well. So, and then Phil went out. Other people then went out. The people who were particularly concerned about the kitchen, the people that were used to, catering and doing things, they were particularly interested to go and see one of the kitchens, the one in the church in the centre of Hereford, which is almost exactly the same as ours. And I think they couldn't fail to be impressed by how it folds away. And people are just so surprised that turns into a kitchen. They just think it's, a bit not old panelling, a bit of new panelling. And then it opens up and they just can't believe we got all those facilities in that small space, and we can just open it up, not quite as a drop of the hat, but very easily. Yeah. So we did. So little groups did go out. Yeah.
And I went, and my wife went, who was a lay reader at the church, went several times to Peter Church on different occasions. And one of the things that I learned from that, which I think is useful for anybody taking on a project in the future, is think big, think ahead, because Peter Church had a great scheme done, but they said they were very close to needing expansion. I don't know if they've expanded.
No, we've just finished the new kitchen there.
So they said, go big. Whatever your dreams are, try and dream bigger, because you will need that. You'll soon get, use out of any extra facility, so stretch yourself as much as you can afford to. And I think, again, we did, because we were looking at a small revamped kitchen originally, weren't we? And not the big server that we had. So I think that's an important lesson there that we learned by talking to other people and listening what other churches had done.
And also there was a spiritual view coming from you, Alex, was that the altar where you receive Christ's food up the East End was mirrored by the earthly food, if you like, that you had afterwards. And then introducing the Alpha and Omega little signs on the servery things it's really, really nice. People really notice those. It's very, very good.
Thank you. So for you, Aidan, coming in, a newcomer to the parish, was it?
Yes.
Tell us about why you got engaged in.
Well, I had a conversation with Pat, which was quite interesting, when you told me there were plans to do works at this end of the church. And I said, there's an architect you really ought to talk to in Herefordshire. And my delight was that you had already made that connection.
I'd read about you in the newspaper.
So there must have been,
And I looked at your
where
website.
it
was in the Times, and there was a letter about you from a church in Hereford saying how terrific your project was.
I didn't even know that.
I've kept it actually. Then I went on your website and I thought, this is just the thing for us.
So that was a sort of serendipitous moment when Pat had come to the right conclusion without me actually having to say Communion Architects, which was brilliant. And then I think the other thing that I think worked really well was, as you say, this idea about the benchmarking visits, so that we can actually understand what we're talking about, because we live in that bubble where we're paid to think of things and conception is everything. And you kind of almost forget that normal people, that can be quite a big step. So going to see it was really important. And I think that, for me, is what cemented the vision. And then using that in the process when there was a bit of a wobble. So I can't remember what it was. There was something about kitchen. And I remember doing another visit with a couple of people where literally just stick them in the car, drive across, have a look at some pieces, and it just put everything.
I think there was concern about having the kitchen servery here, actually in the church.
It was
rather than.
It was a perception that there was going to be clinking of glasses and rattling of cutlery at the most inopportune of moments, and it was just go look at it. If you are doing that, you are not going to empty the dishwasher at the kind of elevation of the host. And there's going to be a moment when it's
and the dishwasher anyway is completely silent. You have no idea whether it's on, do you, Phil?
No.
And but you're right, that was one of the concerns. But it's so quick to open up the kitchen, and with the immediate water heater, you can easily, fill your coffee pot or whatever. Yeah, it's just very quick to get everything ready after the end of the service. Mind you've got to fill.
but if you're coming from a world where you're thinking about tea urns and constantly boiling and that sort of thing, it's a really hard mental jump to take. So if you can actually say, here's one, look how it works, it just cuts through so much learning time for lay people who it's a bit new for. And that worked really well, I think.
Because it's I find it a very personal relationship, either working on people's homes or working in people's churches. They're buildings which mean almost everything to people, aren't they? They're so important. In terms of working with an architect, it's also it's not a relationship that you have every day. But what advice would you give about people when they're trying to choose an architect? How would you start to even consider that process?
I think dependent on the age of the church, particularly as in the case of our church, if it's grade 1 listed, building grade 2 listed, you need the right kind of architect. And as I said, the great thing with communion architects is that you yourself have got a Christian faith background. You understand the importance, the symbolism, the sacredness of a church. It's not just a building project for you. It's everything was done sympathetically. So I think the choice of the right architect, and particularly for a church, is really important. I think as well, I mean, I have worked with architects in the past on schemes, and some of them have got ideas and don't want to listen to anything else. They're not client-led, they are architect-led. But I think, again, the great thing with communion is you attended some evening meetings on those cold winter nights, PCC meetings, you were prepared to talk, listened. There must have been times you thought you were getting nowhere, probably these journeys were wasted because you left and we still weren't sure, but a lot of conversation went on at subsequent meetings, and then we called you back for a bit more. So I think that you need an architect that's got the patience to engage with you, to spend time with you, to explain and talk things through, and above all, the right architect for your right kind of project.
And that was very persuasive for Paul, our vicar, because he didn't know you, and he was having to trust me and then Aidan about what, you know. But then when he met you, he realised that you were a churchman yourself, and you would understand, you know, what it was like to have small children running around the church, how important it was to have coffee that you can easily serve. And so that made it very easy. And then everybody we've met from your office has been very sympathetic to the need to maintain the reverence in the church, but also make it an open and friendly building. Yeah, so that made a great difference to us. Yeah.
And Aidan, for you, sort of on the other side of the kind of profession, on the client side.
Sitting client side,
Yeah.
you did everything that I would aspire to do, but you did it with so much more patience. There were a couple of meetings I remember where I was beginning to get a little short-tempered with people, and you were just there for the start. Class act, so much better than I do, which I have huge respect for. I think in terms of Phil's first point about the heritage of the building, that's a real key one when you're sitting client side. And I was chatting to another architect about this week, where an architect working with heritage places their duty to the heritage above their duty to the client. And you actually have to do both. Yeah. And there is a definite weakness within the profession, particularly the heritage specialism of the profession, that you can place that at the top of the food chain, and looking after your listed building becomes more important than looking after your client. And we win a lot of work through architects who do that, because it generally ends up annoying the client in the end, and the client's the one who's actually important. You have to do both, but I think one of the things Alex did was he wasn't afraid to take on aspects of the building when they needed to be done, and you pushed it further than I would have pushed it occasionally, which is great, and that's what we needed. And I think that's something you shouldn't undersell.
No.
It's a really important aspect of your practice, and it's one of the reasons I kind of rate yours I do.
I think what it has shown is what you actually can do to a grade 1 listed building without causing damage and destroying it. There were lots of people who don't attend church who've got opinions around the village saying they're wrecking that church, it's being ruined, they're pulling it apart, they're turning it into a entertainment venue. All those comments were coming in, weren't they?
They were.
And those people have visited since and have admitted they've been wrong. They've all said, wow, you know, this is the
They were, and that's something we became aware of, that they were more vociferous than the people who actually used the church.
Yeah.
And it was annoying, but we knew we had to work with them because they were also vociferous
parish,
around the parish. Yeah. And it worked.
It did work. So again, I did be bold. Sometimes you can be bold.
Yeah. And there's a perception in now I sit on the DAC for Birmingham, so I've now become poacher again. there is a perception in parishes that DAC will say no. That's not the case. What we want is the argument made, which is what you did. The argument is strong. A listed building is a living building. It's got to live. It's got to adapt. It's been adapting for 600 years. It's got to adapt for another 600 if it's going to have any kind of future. And I think that's what you did very well in terms of pushing the envelope just hard enough. And as Pat says, it stayed a line where people who were looking for a problem couldn't really find one, which is great. But yet it solved the problems that the task or the challenges we set you at the outset.
No, it's really interesting. I think one of the things I've learned is that the people who go to church have a different understanding of the building than the people who don't go to church, and yet it's everyone's building. That's the great thing about a parish church. It's the church of the parish. If you live in the parish, it's your church. So the common perception of those who attend church is, well, this of course is not the church. The church is the people, or something more eternal. And the building is just fabric. It's we like the building, or we may not like the building, but it's not the church. It's the church building. Whereas for people who don't go to church, the building is definitely the church. And the church, although none of us quite know exactly how we think about these things, is the church is certainly, the church building therefore is certainly sacred. That's either because they have a belief in the sacred, or that it's associated with sacred acts. It may be that they were married there, or they had a funeral there, or their parents are buried in the churchyard. So each one of those things, they may not attend on a regular basis, but when they did, this is what it is, and that's their association. So if you then, for the people in the church, inside the church, it's like, well, lovely building, but I need the toilet, or I need a kitchen, or we need it warm. That's their reality. But for the people outside the church, don't touch a church because that is sacred to me. And actually both of those things are a good jumping in place for engagement with people, because the fact is that people get upset is actually because they care, not that they don't care. But it is difficult to handle those conversations.
You described it really well. That's exactly what was going on.
Yeah. And I think the thing about people can get obsessive about the fabric, again, from the permissions or the caretakers for the building, if we call it that, the trustees of the building in the wider sense. But my fervent belief is the building is built for a purpose. And way back, the beginning of listed building circular was, the best use for a building is that which is designed for. And as soon as we move away from that, the building doesn't stand a chance. So the only chance that the building has got is to remain relevant for the purpose that it was designed for. And like it or not, the way that we do church has changed. It changed in the Victorian period, and it's changed massively since that time. And therefore it has to adapt. And as long as it doesn't damage, we don't want to take away, but usually when we finish our projects, people do not walk in and go, well, I can't quite see where the church is anymore. It's almost more powerful. It's more powerful to sit in a well-designed building than a bit of a jumble sale at the back of the church. So
absolutely.
It's really delicate tasks that you've sort of taken on when you take on a church building project. But no, really interesting. Thank you for that. So, in terms of all the ideas that you sort of considered and the principles, what do you think for yourselves were the most important idea or principle that you had to hold on to within the project that you knew you could not lose?
For me, it was the level access. It was so important that people didn't, and the lightness, that those two things had made the church very dark, gloomy and inaccessible before. And I thought, unless we overcome those, we'll never be a welcoming church that's in touch with modern times.
Very interesting.
I mean, we have a lady who comes every Tuesday afternoon on one of those, it's a
Mobility.
scooter thing. She can drive straight in now, and she says to me, this place used to be so frightening before. I couldn't get in, and when I came in, it was spooky, and it's really interesting. Now she can just, she can go over there and get the cushions out of the drawers, so that everybody, and she can then deliver to the cushions to everybody else on her mobility scooter by getting round and round.
Yeah.
It's cute.
Fantastic.
So that's a good example of somebody who wouldn't come to church before. And yeah, weddings, coffins, they can all get in much more easily, can't they?
Yeah. I think for me as well was the additional toilet, because when you had a big service or a wedding or a funeral, we got inevitably there was a queue.
It was usually
so that was a problem. But probably more important on a personal basis, I felt a sense of responsibility as church warden by then in not losing the feel of the church. I was really conscious of not wanting to lose what we got. So that you stand at the step and look forward, nothing has changed. You turn around, it's part at the back, and it's totally different and a big wow factor. And you never know, do you, until the workmen are on site whether from the drawing that's going to be delivered. But again, because we went through those drawings, through the process, the great thing I thought was a great help, and like Hayden would agree, was your 3D visualisation of the project. That it was really helpful. And that took a lot of people, a lot of doubters, or people with slight doubts probably at that time. That got them on board, and you could see, wow, this is what it could look like.
Yeah, that's good. It's always, the visualization's always a little bit scary, because some people you want to show them to, and some people you don't, because it tends to reinforce what people's views are already like. And it's not, it's much better than the drawings, but at the same time, it's nothing like being in the space.
No.
So, but they are, I find them incredibly helpful.
Guide.
Yeah.
It's a big guide to
There's a place for it in that process.
Yeah. How about for you, Aidan?
You've been practical, so I'll be polemical about it. I think the big thing was the geometric relationship between the east-west axis and the north-south axis, and the fact that they skewer at this point pretty well where we're sitting, and placing the halo there, which is asymmetric within the volume, but yet picks up on those two meeting cross-axes. Your first image pretty well was the plan with that geometry drawn on it, with the chalice and wafer at that end. I can't remember what you drew for
Coffee and cappuccino.
Coffee and cappuccino. The coffee and the croissant at the other end, and that sums it up. But then the cross-axis and introducing the two glazed doors means that you get light, and you're right, it was a dark, dingy place, and the south side of this building has got quite dark Victorian glass in it. So actually having the one point with the clear glass that opens up, south side, just gives it masses of light and just utterly transformational for me.
The other thing that people get hooked on is trying to preserve pews. And again, we had some comment, how many pews are we losing? But we found that the few pews that we lost, the space has been better utilised as useful storage space, and with the new seats that we've got, the new chair range, we can actually seat more people than we could. Yeah.
And this raised area is made a little stage. Not a stage, what would you say, like a dress circle, because if people sit on the chairs, they can see over the heads of the people in the pews. So, we've had...
It improves that
operas and events.
Big congregation events really well because of that level change.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about an urban myth, which is, did we sell the pews for a profit?
We did, yeah.
So there you go. Lesson.
Yeah, so then one or two people who'd moaned about the pews being removed, they then answered my advertisement when we were selling the pews. came along and bought one or two. Yes.
So there are
We
one or
sold
two
all of
conservatories which
Yeah, no, people were really pleased, and that they were all people that, no, apart from one, everybody had married here or had a particular wish to have one of our pews rather than any old pew.
they are damn good pews as well. They
Yeah.
are proper Ship
They
in
look-
Camden, back into the arts and crafts movement.
Yes.
They are excellent
Yes.
pieces of joinery.
Yes. So that wasn't a problem at all in the end, the removal of the pews. In fact, it had this. Yes, we made a.
Gives more flexible
Over
seat,
£1,000
more flexible seating space, and you could almost even see now, dare I say, where you could remove the pews that are left, and then you could use this as a you could turn the whole seating round and have this as a for a different type of service, different type of event. This could become the stage. So yeah, I'd say for anybody listening to this podcast, don't be frightened to lose a few or all of your pews if you need to.
Yeah, think how the space can work. And we're so used to it working west to east that actually you forget that there are other models which work east to west. And it's the sort of the Three Choirs Festival model where it reverses itself and this becomes a stage. Or as you say, if you go even further and you completely flex up the space, then you could actually go opposite orientation completely and do things sort of wide angle with staging to north or south.
I think one of the most admired features is the halo light, which Aidan and I will take credit for because we it was our idea, wasn't it, Aidan?
No, it wasn't actually. It was actually on that first sketch because you plot across the two axes crossing. There has to be something here, and it's just a beautiful way to do it.
Yeah.
And actually,
And we saw it. Well, we saw one in.
I've seen
You know, we didn't go together, but you went. It was in Sussex. Was it? Boxgrove Priory.
Yeah.
And then we saw one that won an award at a Catholic church in Fulham.
Hammersmith.
Yeah.
So different ways of solving the problem, and you solved it in a very different way from the way I would have solved it, which is great actually because it's a surprise for me. And it's made from the timber that the rest of the scheme is made from, and it just locks it in.
Yeah.
Whereas I would have tried to make it disappear, you've actually tried to blend the two. And I think actually that's a really good solution. It's not one that I would have, it wouldn't have been on my radar, which is why I like it. It materially, it locks the whole lot in as one concept.
And holding something under the halo or meeting under the halo has become a common Tanworth expression now. Well, we have a service which is called Under the Halo once a month, which is an evening service where we just have a circle of chairs under the halo, and then we have coffee shops which are under the halo. So it's really, really nice.
And we could do various halo themed products, couldn't you? I remember talking to a friend about it, so you could do mugs and little bags. And you take the graphic.
Yeah, we've got the halo bag. It's not
Got a
there.
halo bag out there. Oh, yes, they have actually. That's great. So
Again, we get one.
now we are able to merchandise an asset, which is great. And I think you're right. Once you christened it with a nickname, you've won. You've won.
I think also it was one of those developing ideas, evolving ideas, if we use that language, within the project. And it even evolved. I remember evolving it one Christmas because we'd done the design, but it costed. But I was like, oh, it's just not. It's just. I just felt it was over heavy.
Yeah.
It wasn't that expensive in the end, actually.
No,
was
I
it?
mean, it's a strange expression of value, isn't it? Because some of the most expensive parts of the building are never seen.
Yeah, that's it.
And so much.
We're talking about you M&E engineers.
And yet, you know, I guess when I'm working on homes, people say, oh, I don't want gold taps. And I say, you know, honestly, for the difference it will make to the project, if you want a gold tap, go and have it, because it won't make any difference at all. You know, so much money goes into the ground, so much money goes into it. And there's all these elements, most of which you don't, I mean, all vitally important, but you don't experience. Whereas for the relatively small amount of money, this is a huge experience, and
It is an experience.
Yes, and
I think.
we try and make our church work for the most part. It's all new but quite quiet, whereas this is a celebration of something. And that's kind of exciting, and it's exciting that people have adopted it.
Yeah, no,
and
it's
taken
really,
hold of
really
it.
nice. And the other thing, artistically, it's all, our building is based, I mean, I know we've got curved arches, but it's a very sort of rectangular building, isn't it? And this is just a round, contrasting shape.
It's a celebration of the feminine in a very kind of butch, angular, masculine space, if I can go down that road. But I'm going to carry on with that theme. Riff on that theme. The arts and crafts tradition. So this is made by a local craftsman, which is brilliant. And if we go back to where that arts and crafts tradition begins, a lot of it was in central England. The great theorists were William Morris, Letherby, both of which Midlands connections. And the Bromsgrove Guild workshops producing works like this for churches at the end of the 19th, early 20th century. There is in the next door parish a series of chandeliers, small scale but the same job, produced by the Bromsgrove Guild in the materials of the day, but with the text on the centre, just in the same style. And for me, that's just a really lovely 100 years later. We're still doing the same game, we're playing the same architectural devices, but just reinterpreting it with new materials, new surfaces, new finishes. And it's just a lovely little architectural delight that the building's rich with. And
I think on materials as well, it's important to, as you said about, go for gold taps. If you want gold taps, go for the best that you can. I think we got the best here.
Yeah, I remember when you chose these bronze chairs, I remember thinking, no, you can't spend that on those chairs. And you did, and it's worth it. Take it all back. It's money really well spent.
The chairs
are gorgeous.
They are. I mean, yes.
Yes.
Yes. I think I was keen on this project. Often when we do church reordering, there tends to be oak and silver, whatever it is, stainless steel. And I wanted to come away from that in this project. And therefore, we have used the bronze as a theme.
It's a kinder colour than the chrome, that sort of silvery chrome. And it goes so well, doesn't it, Phil, with those...
It goes with the oak, it goes with the brickwork as well.
It works so well in this space, and I am stealing it shamelessly among other projects, because it's just a damn good idea. And
So in the end, although the bronze chairs, were a few more pennies than the silver version, I think they absolutely finish it off.
Right.
So,
and they're comfortable to
congratulations
sit
to you.
on.
Yeah, the chairs are
comfortable.
beautiful, aren't they? These are the chairs that we use exclusively because they're made by ICS in Ireland, but they're church furniture specialists, and they absolutely know how to do it. And they are such a good chair.
are they not how?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
I thought they were. Sorry.
That's okay. No.
They're really lovely.
Yeah. Thank you for all of this. This is really very, very helpful. I might just pick up on this. I think we've picked up on it a little bit, and then we'll sort of come to our last question. But within the overall, if we call it a pilgrimage of the project overall, any particular steps that you would say to people, on your journey, do not forget about this step? We've talked about consultation. Yeah. Anything else that kind of steps that you might have missed, but you would definitely not miss it again?
I think I was conscious to keep the diocese with us all along. I mean, it was, as Aidan said, helpful that he came, but the previous...
I came after the fact, actually.
The first Archdeacon, Hayward Osborne, he was the one who said to the vicar, when are you going to tidy up this church? So he was sort of on it from the start. So I knew it was important to make sure he was engaged, and he left halfway through, but he set the tone. I think that he sort of explained to the DAC that this church really does need sorting out. So that did help. So I think.
And then you organised with Ben, I remember, a DAC visit before we really got into the design. And that was critical. And now when I sit on DAC and I look at best practice, it's churches who do that and have that meeting when there's the very fewest scribbles on a piece of paper, so that you spread that constituency who are inputting into it even wider, and that level of expertise comes too. And invariably good things come out of it, and you close down avenues which you kind of need closing down. There's no point in wasting the money on it. So yeah, I think in terms of advice, that really early connect with DAC, almost kind of ahead of almost any scheme coming out of it, it's just to sort of talk through the problem, gets them engaged and bought into that process.
I think it's also important. I mean, I'm a great believer in that, and we did that here. I do a scheme. Now, the scheme, and a lot of DACs find that difficult because it's not a faculty application, there's no detail. But a full faculty application is a lot of work, a lot of money. But for the DAC members, it's a pile of paper they've got to work their way all the way through. And it's hard to see the wood for the trees at that point. Whereas
you're
I find
you're locked into a concept by then, aren't you? You've got nobody's got anywhere to move to. Whereas I think what you did here, and I think it's a really good exemplar, is the kind of light touch first conversation to nail down the principles, and then we're not wasting anything. It's that sort of master plan, strategic view, and then you're constantly focusing on delivering it from then on. Once the strategy is agreed, what's there for anybody to argue about? And it's a really good methodology, I think, for developing that.
Yeah, because I think it's really important people have got to own the vision of the project. If they don't own the vision, they're not going to own the mission. If they don't own the mission, they're not going to like the product at the end of it. So if people don't buy into the vision, that's fair enough. Not everyone's going to buy into the vision, but that's okay. But at the end of the day, most people have got to buy into the vision. If they understand the vision, they will understand the project. And if you don't get the vision, there's no point, no amount of detailing about the handrails will fix it. It's just a basic, do you agree with the project or not? But communicating that, what this project needs to do, and agreeing that, and as you say, discussing it, because those early discussions, and it was a theme throughout the project, of font in, font out, are we going to do it, was critical, and it would have been very difficult just to land that as a finished item on without those early discussions.
It's really interesting. This week, I've been across to see a £90 million project in Ireland, which architecturally is fabulous. It's I won't name the architect because people will hear it, but internationally renowned architect, fantastic building in many ways, great, photogenic, all that good stuff. But it was the process where the architect said, okay, thanks for the commission, guys. We'll give you the keys in 2 years. There you go. There's your building. And it is photogenic. It's a lovely looking building. But as the client said to me, they've managed to piss off just about every stakeholder on that project because it falls down on that level of solving the problem. And that's what the approach you've done here is the absolute antithesis of. And it's so important because we've owned the problems with you from right the way through it.
Also, you have supervised the project. We didn't have to deal with a third party, as what do you call the person? Project manager. I mean, I know we were just so blessed with our builders. But I mean, the fact that you were managing, because when we had that debate, whether we should get somebody else from outside to come and manage the builders, didn't we, Phil?
But we suggested like I was always happy that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's an option, isn't it?
You sometimes can get a conflict of interest, and I've seen that on projects I've dealt with the architect who's also the.
Well, I think that there's also something that, this is my chance to big you two up, is that in fact you were the project managers, client side, because you lived the project in enough detail to be there as the decision-making process, managing people, whether you need to bring them in and out. And actually having you two was the blessing on that side, because it meant that we didn't need that role. You guys did it.
And it is a full role. I mean,
It is.
yeah,
It is. And often a client will say, I've got a day job, I can't commit to this.
Yeah.
Therefore, I kind of need somebody else to come in and do that. But the inputs that you two made, I think, were absolutely fundamental to that success.
But going back to Alex's question, I can't think of anything we really missed. If anything, we might have been a bit slow kicking it off because of we caught COVID and the inflated material and labour prices. The project ended costing a lot more than the QS had originally estimated, and that's just bad timing. But I still think it was the right thing to do, and I think also having the builders in and having a thorough discussion, having face-to-face meetings, and looking at best value meetings with the contractors, making the sensible decision about those rather than just looking at one contractor and say, oh, they're all good enough.
We did. I mean,
that was a big.
Yes, it was. But, and if you remember, Phil, you noticed, or was it you, Alex, noticed that the builder that we chose, I don't know whether we could manage
split
to
that.
split
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Okay. I mean, they arrived early, and they had a look round. They were looking around where they were going to leave put their equipment. They didn't just come in their sharp suits and dazzle us. They came in their ordinary working clothes, and they well researched what they were going to do. It's always a risk. I mean, we didn't know until they arrived just how wonderful they were going to be.
But and the other big plus for me, bigging up communion, is normally the minute the last nail's locked in, you've had your handover inspection, the architect's goodbye, I'll write to you in 12 months' time when we're on retention release. But you've worked with us a lot on these 12 months. You've helped with subsidiary bits and pieces, still conversations and paperwork for the diocese. And that's been a great help. I think that really finishes the project off, saying, well, yeah, there's a 12-month warranty period, and I'm still about, and I'm still happy to talk.
I think that's a real
it's
thing.
a massive plus.
And one of the stories I've been telling of late was when you organised that little thank you for everybody, and you very, very charmingly sort of pulled everybody together to sort of say some words at the end of it, and you went around the room and introduced everybody in that room personally and what they'd done, and there were people there, I didn't know, we didn't know. It kind of brought together that curious coalition that every project has in the most wonderful way. And I came out of that thinking, boy, have I learnt a lesson today. This is how you do it. And I think culturally it says everything about community and architects that you could wish to hear. I think for the project it's exemplary. And just as a life lesson, what a great way to wrap up something and in that way. And just that kind of collective acknowledgement. It was great.
And getting all those people together, because you don't realise behind the scenes how many people.
Some guy who's figured out how to do the hydraulics on the font. I didn't know about that. Wow. And great, somebody from a church down the coast. Oh yeah, I know. My friend lives next door. Suddenly, that constituency spreads and spreads and spreads, and that's the lovely thing about it. Is good projects just seem to draw people in, don't they?
I think it is. I mean, it's the first time we did it, and one of the key reasons we did it is because Peter, who helped us design that hydraulic system, he was a friend of the structural engineer, and we were asking Sinclair. He's like, you just need to talk to my friend. And it was a Sunday afternoon, email, several pages long. Use this, do that, how heavy is it? And between him and Tony, they sorted it out. He didn't ask for any money, he was just interested. So that you had, it was like, you need to come and see and since that was the genesis of that particular idea. And there's so many people, but the person that meant so much to was the person that carved the font, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he was really, justly proud.
He was
of
really
the
proud
work,
of it. Yeah,
but no one met him or so it was a real beautiful moment.
But if that's what he's done, he's made, that's a piece of craft which is going to sit in this space
Yeah.
for the next 600 years.
And that was what was so,
That's powerful stuff.
very powerful for him.
As with the work that Geoff did for steel signs.
Yeah, no, I mean,
they
he's-
were
he's
so they
terrific,
could turn their
yeah.
hand up to anything, and
Yeah.
the level of quality and detail.
Yeah. And it was him that wanted to put the metal, finishing bit around the. I mean, we hadn't asked for that, but he wanted to do it, didn't he, Phil?
Yes.
Just to finish it off.
And he turned up with initially the halo light and realised when he stood in the upper room, if you want tiptoes, you could see the cable trays, the cable was in, and he's since been, I don't know if you know, Alex, he's since been put lids, he made lids for them all. So now when you upstairs, because it mattered, that reminds me of the stonemason was being asked when St Paul's Cathedral was being asked by one of his apprentices, why are you carving all that detail at the back of these gargoyles? Nobody's ever going to see it. Yes, but I know it's there.
Yeah.
God sees it.
Brilliant. So, I guess no one does an architectural journey just for the fun of it. It's definitely about the destination rather than about the journey. So, in terms of the new building, almost, if we say polemically, the fulfillment of the promise, what has made the most difference to the life of the church and the wider community? What aspect of it, or what is the difference that the project has made? Could you say?
It's got to be the usable space and the facilities to be able to cater and serve the community. I know Pat would say as well and agree the level of access and the light. I think there were no wasted elements. I think that's the great thing. There was nothing done just for the sake of let's just do that because it might be a good thing to do. Everything was done for a purpose. The extra toilets, the storage space, everything has been useful. And therefore, the whole thing serves the community better in the sense of, and it's so flexible having this free, light, open area.
I mean, an example is on Friday mornings when the school comes over, we are now able to invite parents to most of those services every Friday. And they go and get their cups of coffee and they stand around and chat, and it's a really relaxed atmosphere, whereas before there was no space to do that. And it was dark and they just wanted to go out, really, basically, if they came at all.
So that is an assembly? At the school?
Every Friday morning the school comes over, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to hang on to the pews, because they fill the pews every Friday. So if we were to have chairs, we would have to get chairs out every Friday. It would have been too much. So, but this space has enabled the parents to come
And when I've been one of
join
those parents, I remember before this was done, there would be 25 people in the porch, nobody daring to open the door.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
that's
everybody,
right.
the tyranny of the oak door, everybody's standing there looking,
Absolutely,
nobody
I'd
dares
forgotten
open it.
that. Yeah, and
just
you're so right.
and being able to leave it open so you can see that glimpse view in.
Yeah.
People who don't know this church, the kind of village high street is 6 metres outside that door. It is really, really close, but yet it could be 6 miles away when the door's closed. And actually being able to open it and have that glimpsed view in is
Yeah,
gold
it makes
dust.
it-
In the
it's-
evenings, if something's going on in here, it's lovely. You just see that warmth of the glow of the light, and you connect community to its church, and church to its community.
No, that's a really, really good point. It has made a huge difference. That has.
I just think the glass doors, I mean, I don't think I've done a project without them. Because often there's a lot going on in the building, but if the doors are closed, no one can see it.
No, that's right.
It almost seems too easy an answer, but actually that's because it's the right answer.
And the amount of light that just pours in, on
The south door is utterly
because,
transformational.
Wow, what a conversation. I guess before we sort of tie up, is there any sort of last words that you'd want to bring into the conversation?
Well, I think we all feel a sense that we're part of history now here. Do you know what I mean? It's a historic thing we've done here, isn't it? It's going to last for many generations, hopefully. So it's been a real pleasure and privilege to be part of the project and to work with you, Alex, and with your team. They've all been absolutely terrific. And, it's
Pleasure
really,
has been
really
ours,
been
Pat.
nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And likewise, I couldn't recommend more strongly working with communion. I'm the sort of first person I'd have a conversation with about it. And I know that's not on for the podcast. It's not an outreach. Just I really mean that. It's my go-to. Can you do anything for me? If I was looking for another project for the church, be it a new roof or repair, I'd certainly be looking. I mean, oddly enough, when I came to this church, we'd arrived at a new roof had just gone on the North Aisle, and there was problems with the architect, wasn't there? Years afterwards, the final bill wasn't set until about 4 years ago. And likewise in the previous church I was involved with, so it is refreshing to have somebody you can get sensible answers and work with it.
Yeah, and it's sympathetic to churches. That's the big thing.
But no, it's as you say, it's been a biggest change since the 1882, was it, with the George Edward Street, the Victorian change. We've had nothing like it since, but and hopefully it'll keep us going for at least.
And the floors lasted really well. You know, when we first had the floor, we can't have red wine or Ribena, blah, blah. But actually, there's never any problem. It's been fantastic.
It's pretty hard wearing oak.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it is one of those materials that gets better with age, and not many materials get better with age, but oak does. Aidan.
Oh, gosh, what can I say? I've really enjoyed working with you because I'm used to sitting on your side of the table. So actually sitting on this side of the table, it makes a real pleasant change, and it's been a real good school day for me. I've learnt lots. I've seen some good things come through that process that I want to take into my practice. But also, I think the way that you've brought people with you on that journey. As I say, there are times on a project where my temper runs short, and you've never come close to that. And I'm so impressed with that. When people are people, and there are times when it just gets a little bit frustrating, but that's always just sort of gone through quite seamlessly. And you brought everybody with you. There's nobody feels pushed out, I don't think, at the end of this process, and it's just been a real exemplar. So that's off. Well done.
And that's not just for the people in the church. If you read the visitors' book, our visitors' book, there is absolutely rammed full of comments from people coming from the States, from Australia. It's full of great comments of, wow, what a place.
And we've had lots of visits from other churches. I hope some of them are getting in touch with you.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So yes, no, I've learned lots.
Yeah.
But on my DAC travels, I'll say, go and go see what Alex has done in San. And your work remains the benchmark for me for the best. And I mean that seriously, the best interventions within church projects, within church buildings in the UK.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, I didn't quite expect all of that.
Well,
No.
but I think that's what I say to people. Had this conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago. I said, look, if you're picking who you go with, this guy's the best. So,
Well, dear me. Quite taken aback. So, well, thank you. I mean, I think thank you for your time. Obviously, not just this time, but thank you for the last 5 or 6 years. I think it's a church project. So, what I love about church projects is they do run at a slightly different timescale to a lot of other projects.
Well, some people tell me we've gone really fast.
Well, I think we have. I guess if you don't count the 20 years before we started.
That's not true.
I think part of the joy for myself for this project is that it has been a creative exploration of what it means to transform a space, and in particular a space of faith, but a particular space within your community in Tanworth-in-Arden, and the idea of a church in the woods, in the forest, I think is brilliant. Yes, obviously there are the kind of perennial issues of kitchens and toilets and accessibility, which have been the needs of the project. But I don't think, even though we've hopefully sorted those, that's not really what the project is about for me. And that's kind of unusual and I think that's what's unusual and beautiful about yourselves as a client, as a community, is people can get, and it's a real problem, fixated on those things. But what's been important also is the idea of what is the idea of a forest church. What is it going to be? What is this project going to be centered around? What's going to deliver? How are we going to express what we need in fabric? And I think that what really centered this project, and it was easily the most contentious item. No one really argued about the kitchen or the accessibility or the loos. It didn't come up. The one thing that was most contentious was the font, and doing a new font in a church which has a history of fonts in it. But you did not shy away from that. It was absolutely, you talked about it being we've always put that font at the very nexus point of this church. And traditionally the fonts have always been put at the entrance of church, and quite often we're moving them to other places. But the idea of this font was to put it right in the center, to bring the outside in, to bring the location within, deep within to the church, to bring that idea of welcome and initiation into the church, and then to do it in a completely new way. And then not only to do that, but then to celebrate it by putting a crown on it all, was a really contentious and difficult, and we wrote more about that and we discussed more about that to win people than any of the other things. But that is really what the project is centered around. And I think that is really, really unusual. But what makes the church project really special, and as you said, Pat, people walk in and, there is that wow moment.
There is a wow moment, definitely.
And so, and I think part of that is welcoming people into this space, welcoming into that faith, crowning that with hope, and that hope is the hope that shines in the darkness. And then, welcoming people in with love, in a sense of kindness, that there are teas and coffees and welcome and community and toilets, and they are welcomed because they can get into the church. So, and through that, as you said, we're able to engage in that story and pass on ideas that are generations old, and yet those ideas are still finding new places to live and new explorations in people's hearts and minds. Ideas that are thousands of years old are still coming alive in this place today, because that you were willing to take the risk and saying, actually, the idea of light in the darkness is an important idea. The idea of East and West and welcoming people in, and death and life are still important things, and baptism is still a really important thing. And you didn't shy away from that, and that has been centered on the project, and that's what I believe that the scheme is about. And that for me has been a really, really interesting and transformational journey. And I think, as you mentioned, the artwork on the doors is not just manifestation, a few little dots. It is an amazing artistic reference.
And Phil chose the words from the psalm that go around it. No, I think people really, really like it.
Yeah, and then the dedication to our benefactor.
Yeah, to Jim and Susan. It's very well. I mean, it was. We would never have been able to do it without Jim's legacy.
Yeah.
And Susan's legacy enabled us to do more than, it just added extra. So it was really good, lovely.
So, yeah, I guess for us, as we sort of round up, it is the ideas of faith, hope, and love,
Yeah.
and how you've turned that into an expression of what a historic Forest parish church can be, is really very, very special. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.